Good afternoon. I want to keep this video as short as possible. One question. Do you want dominion or do you want boundaries? Okay, let me give an explanation what I mean with dominion. With dominion, I don't mean abusive control upon others. I do not mean terrorizing others at their expense. That's not what the word dominion implies, even though it has been used like that in history. In Genesis, we read that the Lord gave mankind dominion when they were created. But when you look at practice, often people don't want dominion. They just want boundaries. It comes down to people are self-centered upon their gain, what they like and dislike, and they want to guard their validation. They want, and this guarding of their validation, in order to do this, they um, make a distinction that doesn't exist between them and the other becomes hostile territory, and the us, the people that validate their validation, they belong to the us. And in order to, how do I say, in order to maintain a boundary, which is an imaginary limit, you have to take action because a boundary only exists to the extent that you act it out because it's imaginary. For example, let's say you are walking around and there's a couple kissing with one another in public. Now, you may feel annoyed thinking this is the public space. That's a boundary you have because that's an expectation you have that such things belong behind closed doors. Well, that's just an expectation that you grew up with. And now, when you see that that expectation is not manifested, you feel threatened. And now you become angry, you become hostile. That has to do with your thinking, not with an objective fact that's happening out there in reality. Or let me give another illustration to point this out to you. Okay, let's say that you have a house and someone wants to enter into your house, which tell them take off your shoes. Why? Because you don't want your carpets to become dirty, go to the dust outside of your house. So if this is the case, then this is a boundary. It's an expectation. It can be a valid expectation because you want to keep your carpet clean, but it's just an expectation that you act out by preventing people to enter your house without taking off their shoes. All right. So I hope you understand me now that boundaries are imaginary. They're not objectively real. They're not fact. They're not really factual. They're only real to the extent you act them out. But here's the trick. Boundaries are short-term fixes. A long-term fix would be, in the case of your house, that you only permit people to come to your house that value your carpet and therefore, out of honor to you, they take off the shoes when they're at the door. Or um, another thing would be, in the first example I gave of you encountering that couple in public, it's for you to give up that expectation and project it onto everyone. That's another thing. Then you won't feel annoyed and you're not going to be emotionally charged when you encounter something that goes against your expectation because you won't have that expectation anymore. And so you get idea. Boundaries, they tend to lock you up within the expectations you hold dear. And this locking up happens without you being aware of it. And this locking, when you are locked up within your own expectations, you become blind. You become blind to the fact that you're locked up. So your expectations become objectively real onto you. So whenever reality manifests that your expectation is not valid, you feel threatened, as if something is threatening you. But hold on a minute, that threat is a reaction and a consequence of the thought patterns you're holding on to. But often we don't see it like this. Whenever we see something manifest that goes on against the values we hold dear, we blame it onto the manifestation, and often through whom it manifests. And what happens then? We're going to hold tighter to our boundaries. Look, if you're walking, if you're in town and someone once begins to shout at you, you can say, don't shout at me. That can be a boundary for that moment to prevent escalation. Or if you have something calling you over and over again, like say you have a corporation that wants to uh, sell a product onto you, but you don't want that product, and you can tell them you will block their phone number if they continue. That can also be a boundary just to prevent escalation. In such instances, boundaries are just practical, short-term fixes to a situation. Or another way can another way is that, let's say that you have this dude that's looking for a fight, and you use force to make him back off. Now that's you putting a boundary to prevent further escalation. So boundaries have their use, but boundaries are just short-term fixes, and way too often we hold on to them as if they are gods. I said it, we hold on to boundaries as if they are everything. First of all, boundaries, when you hold on to them, when you realize boundaries are just short-term fixes because they're imaginary constructs, then you will deal with them wisely. But if you hold on to boundaries as if they are your safety, you are in trouble. Because before you know it, you will be the one causing danger without you being aware of it. For example, someone that is very distant towards others because they don't want to be emotionally hurt. After a while, they will feel hurt just because their emotional needs are not being met. But why are their emotional needs not being met? Because, well, they're quite distant toward others. But they don't see that anymore because they see their distance as a form of protection. They see their distance as a form of, well, it's just how it has to be. But they've become blind to it. So now, every time they see others that are having close relationships, they tend to think, what's wrong with me? And they now begin to look for ways to connect to people without checking their own thinking patterns. So when they do get into contact with other people and things go further, they they suddenly begin to suspect people of doing things wrong. Why? Because they're still attached to those defensive thinking patterns. And now when they are in contact with those other people, they'll begin to act defensively. Now, according to them defensively, but really offensively, they begin to act out against those people to protect themselves. And they will never see that it's them acting out. The others thinking, hold on, I need to get out of here. And when others leave them, they interpret that again as, you see, that's why I need to hold on to my boundaries. Because look at this. I hope you get what I'm saying here. Boundaries, I repeat, because through repetition you learn, boundaries are short-term fixes to prevent further escalation of a circumstance. That's the only good boundaries have. The moment you hold on to them as your safety, you're in trouble. As I asked before, what do you want? Do you want boundaries that will cause bondage and will lock you in the long run, or do you want dominion? Dominion is an example given that you are operating in the spirit. So let's say you are a young woman, you're short and quite thin, and you don't want to be sexually harassed, or you don't want people to harm you. So what do? You have faith in Christ, so you agree with Christ, you decree His word, you decree His promises. Every day you meditate on His word. And what's happening? The Holy Spirit is shining through you, and power is released from you because you're operating in the word. So what's the consequence now? When you're walking down the street, you will have those other, let's say you have a few perverts walking around. They are in the negative, they have this waste energy around them, even if demons cleaving onto them. Those demons are going to see you. they're going to see the power shining out of you, and the demons are going to be frightened. And now the pervert is going to notice you also, and the pervert is sensing the fright of those demons, but they don't know that they have demons with them. So when the pervert sees you, he's thinking, whoa, this girl or this woman is quite weird. She's quite frightening. And the pervert begins to walk away from you. So what happened now? Now you don't have to, how do I say, you don't have to arm yourself, carry a knife with you, or to be extra vigilant. No, because you're operating in the spirit. Of course you are vigilant spiritually, but you're not charged with checking everyone out. Why? Because you're operating in the supernatural. That's dominion. Because listen, if you have a perfect out there and they are charged and they are leaking out, boundaries are not effective. Because as I mentioned before, boundaries are fictive constructs that you act out. But if you're small and thin and a pervert is quite muscled, guess who's going to win physically? That's why choose dominion. Christ wants you to operate in dominion. Okay? Look, as I mentioned, for boundaries are just for the short-term fix. Don't hold on to short-term fixes. Hold on to the long-term solution. And the long-term solution is to be transformed by the renewing of your mind so that your mind is in agreement with Christ Himself. I don't ask you who's watching this video to agree with me. I don't even care if you agree with me or not, whether you like this video or not. I do expect, I do hope you to agree with Christ. So again, what do you want? Boundaries or dominion? Be at peace.